Hello and welcome to the Football Index Pick of the Day, presented by FI Moneyball. This is a new video series in which we're going to be looking at undervalued players on Football Index who offer a good opportunity for a profit without taking too much of a risk. These players can be good for starters on Football Index, as you want to make sure you maintain your capital. It's easy to get drawn in by the big names on Football Index, but they tend to have a lot of volatility. If this video was made a while ago and the player's price has changed, then still should be value in watching the video, as you'll be able to see some of the methods I use for finding players, analysing their values and comparing them to similar players on the index to try and get a fair value for them. Since this is the first video, I'll just give you a quick background of my history on Football Index. So I've been trading for about 13 months now. My portfolio is standing at about 31,428, as you can see in the top corner here. I have 1,671 in dividends, and my profit is about £12,500. So I'm running just short of £1,000 a month in profit. One important thing about that figure is that when I started, I did start with small deposits. My first deposit was around £200, I think, and maybe in the first month I was up to maybe £1,000. So over the time that I've been on Football Index, I've gradually gained confidence, and my deposits have got bigger and bigger. So even though I'm only showing around 12,000 profit on 31,400 portfolio, I think my real return for the first deposits were probably close to 120%. And I definitely want to be trying to maintain an annual return of around 100% moving forward. So anyway, that's enough about me. Let's get straight into today's pick. And the player I picked for today's video is Sebastian Rudy. Now, Sebastian Rudy plays for TSG Hoffenheim. He just signed from Schalke on July 31st. He's on loan with an option to buy. Now, Rudy did play for Hoffenheim in the past. He had 7 seasons there before moving to Bayern Munich at the end of his contract in 2017. After 1 season with Bayern Munich, he moved to Schalke, and then he played the 18-19 season with Schalke before moving back to Hoffenheim on loan. Now, the main attraction for Sebastian Rudy for me is his price. If you look at his price at 23p, that's incredibly cheap for a player who starts for his team and plays in one of the top 5 leagues of Europe. In the last 7 days, if we take a look at his graph, you can see he's had a 4p increase. This 4p increase, I believe, was because he started for the first game of the season against Eintracht Frankfurt, and they lost 1-0, and he got a performance buzz of 106 points. Now, that's a pretty good performance buzz considering that they lost 1-0 and he plays as a defensive midfielder. It gives you some optimism that in the future he could get close to winning some dividends for you. If we look at his 1-year price graph, we can see here that he did temporarily drop as low as 17p at the back end of last season. And something to consider with that is Schalke had a terrible season. They went from coming second in the league in 2017-18 to coming 14th in the league in 18-19. And that's in a league of 19 teams, so they were only 2 places away from being relegated. The next thing we're going to look at for Sebastian Rudy is his transfer market profile. So the first thing we can see is that he has won the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich. He also won the Confederations Cup with Germany, and he's got 2 German Super Cup winning medals. He's a 29-year-old defensive midfielder, and he has 27 caps for Germany in 1 goal. If we take a look at his 18-19 figures, he played 21 games in the Bundesliga, 28 games overall, and didn't get any goals or assists. Now, this was a really poor return from Rudy. I was really expecting a lot more from him. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he's coming into a new team that went from 2nd to 14th, so there would have been a lot of difficulty in that team. And he played 28 games, but he only averaged 66 minutes, so it definitely wasn't one of his better seasons. And I think once we look at his overall career stats, you'll see that there's good reason to expect a little better from him now that he's back at Hoffenheim in a place where he feels comfortable, and he spent 7 years and was fairly successful. So here we've got all his season stats, and in the Bundesliga he played 257 games, got 12 goals and 33 assists. And if we take that and average it out to goals and assists per 90 minutes, and the reason I do that is because for in-play dividends, a goal and assist is 1p, so they're basically the same. It comes out at 0.21 per 90 minutes. So that's roughly 1 in 5 games he would register a goal or an assist. For his overall career, he got 366 games, 28 goals and 50 assists, and that comes out actually a little bit better. 0.25 goals or assists per 90 minutes, which is roughly 1 in 4. And we can see here that he averages maybe twice as many assists as goals in that kind of area. So the next thing I like to look at when valuing a player is who are the comparable players and what are they valued at on the index. So on Transfermarkt, they do have this as an option, comparable players here. So we've got Christoph Kramer, who plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach, Lars Bender and Tobias Strobel. Tobias Strobel is not on the index, unfortunately, but Lars Bender and Christoph Kramer are. One thing to consider is both these players play for teams that are playing in Europe this year, which gives them a little bit of an advantage, but I'd say that should only account for a couple of pence, really. I wouldn't expect really for them to go too deep into the tournaments, but it can have a benefit because you've got extra game days. Another option to just confirm the comparisons that Transfermarkt gives is FUT head. So this here again shows them at similar ratings, 82, 81 and 82. It does have Lars Bender as a right back. I don't think he plays at right back very regularly, but as you can see from these comparisons, it does have Rudy as rated higher in almost all categories. I think there's just physicality for Lars Bender, which is better than Rudy's, but it's a good sign that Rudy is the same, if not better, than these two players. And now we can move on to the next stage, which is seeing what kind of price these two players trade at. So first off, if we look at Christoph Kramer, we can see that he's currently priced at 29p on the index. He actually only recently IPO'd on the 28th of July, and they IPO'd him at 32p, I believe, yeah. So that's pretty interesting because that says what they expect a player's value to be. Usually when a player IPOs, they actually go up in value, but there's a chance that I believe all three of these players are probably undervalued and would probably increase over the season. So that could explain why his price has dropped a little as soon as he started on here. The next thing to look at would be his Transfermarkt. Now, Christoph Kramer has actually got a World Cup winners medal. He only played in 2 games, one of which was the last 16 round where he came on as a 109th minute sub. And he did actually start the final after an injury in the warm-up, but he himself got injured in the first half and went off. So Christoph's a 28-year-old defensive midfielder. He's got 12 caps for Germany and 0 goals. If we look at his stats from last year, he played in 18 games in the Bundesliga, got 2 goals and 1 assist. 19 games overall with the same 2 goals and 1 assist. So he was a little bit more productive, but he had a similar number of games to Sebastian Rudy. Played a little bit less, but he had an injury and he's actually just coming back from injury this weekend. So here I have the overall career stats for Christoph Kramer. And in the Bundesliga, he's got 160 games, 10 goals and 11 assists. Now, when I work out the goals and assists per 90 for Kramer, it actually comes out a little bit lower at 0.15, which is 1 in 6.6 games. And for his overall career, it's even lower again. It's 0.11 goals or assists per 90 minutes, which is about 1 in 9. So even though last season he scored a couple of goals and got an assist, over his whole career he's definitely not been as productive as Sebastian Rudy has in those 2 departments. And next we have Lars Bender. You can see here that he's trading at 28p, so it's fairly consistent over those 2 players. When we look at his 1-year graph, he was down around 24p at the start of last year. I actually bought Lars Bender at that time, so I do own this player as well. As the new season approached and the index overall had a bit of a boost from influx of new money, he's come up to 28p now, but I still think that, again, all 3 of these players could probably go up in value over this season, but I think Sebastian Rudy, with his price being 23p versus 28 and 29, is offering the best return. If we go to his Transfermarkt, we can see he's got a couple of trophies, but they're both actually youth level trophies. He's 30, so he's a year older, which does affect things a bit. Defensive midfielder, played 19 games for Germany and got 4 goals, sorry. His 18-19 stats, he played 27 games, got 1 goal and 5 assists. So again, in the same kind of ballpark, had a better year than Sebastian Rudy last year, but that's one of the reasons that I believe he's undervalued and could offer a good option for this year. When we go to his total results, so these are his career stats, and he's played 225 Bundesliga games, 19 goals and 26 assists. and his overall is 374 games, 28 goals and 34 assists. So I again calculated the goals and assists per 90, and he actually came out a little bit better in the Bundesliga, 0.25 per 90, so 1 in 4, and kind of the reverse of Sebastian Rudy at 0.21 in his whole career, which is 1 in 5. So the next thing I wanted to highlight, for those who don't know, this is the dividend payout table for Football Index, and the thing I'm looking at next is the in-play dividends, which pay out for the first 30 days after you own a share. So for a midfielder, you get 1p for a goal and 1p for an assist. Now, the reason that's quite interesting for Sebastian Rudy, at 23p, if he was to get a goal or an assist, that would be an instant 4.3% return. Now, I would also expect a price bump if he was to get a goal or an assist in the next 30 days, or at any point really, just because that's the way that the index tends to react. But I think it's very good that you can get such a return just from 1 goal or 1 assist. So for the in-play dividends, we obviously need to see which games are going to be played within the next 30 days if you were to buy him. So there's actually 4 games coming up in the next 30 days for Sebastian Rudy. He's home to Werder Bremen, away at Bayer Leverkusen, home to Freiburg, and away at Wolfsburg. Now, these aren't the greatest fixtures that they could have. They are playing 3 teams that finished above them last year. Werder were 8th, Bayern were 4th, Freiburg were 13th, and Wolfsburg were 6th. But these are all winnable games for the team because they were in the same ballpark. Hoffenheim came 9th last year, but they came 2nd the year before. And they could definitely beat these teams on the day. And Rudy, one thing to think about is since he's signed, he's actually played every minute available in the 3 games that they played since signing him. They played Sevilla in a friendly 2 days after he signed. They then played the first round of the DFB Cup, which he played 120 minutes, and then he played the full 90 against Eintracht Frankfurt at the weekend. So now to summarise, I'm just going to go into the reasons why I personally believe that Sebastian Rudy is a good option to buy on Football Index. He's a player that I do own, and these are some of the reasons why I own him. If he was to increase to the price of Lars Bender, which is 28p, that would be a 21% return on his current price. If he won the performance buzz, I've come in with a low estimate of his price increasing to 50p. Realistically, it's probably going to be higher than that, but just if you take a benchmark of 50p, that's going to be a 117.4% return. And then the main thing that I usually think of is if he's going to get on the top 3 in midfielders. He might not win the buzz because that's a big ask for any player, but I think if he was to make it onto the leaderboard and get his name seen and get some interest, then I think his price could easily get to 33p, which would be a 43.5% return. And as we talked about earlier, the in-play dividends for goals and assists is 4.3%. That's a really good return, and I think that would always come with a bit of a bump in price. So I think there's a lot of options for us to make a profit on this player, and there's a very limited downside due to his price. The other thing to consider is there's just general inflow of money into the game all the time. So most players are going to be going up more than they're going down. So just before we go, I have one more player just to look at quickly. Just in case we run like God and Sebastian Rudy has a really good season and Hoffenheim get back to the kind of form they had a couple of years ago and finish 2nd. This is Axel Witsel. He's a 30-year-old defensive midfielder, plays for Borussia Dortmund, and he's trading at £1.8. He had a great season last year for Borussia, as they had a great season. But when I actually went through and calculated his goals per game or goals and assists per 90, both in the Bundesliga and in his whole career, he has played a lot more games in his career and he's also much more experienced at international level, but he actually equated to 0.21 per 90 in the Bundesliga and 0.25 per 90 in his whole career. So that's exactly the same as Sebastian Rudy. So, you know, we can always dream that if he has a good season, that's the kind of returns we'd be looking at. You know, over 300% would be pretty astonishing. No guarantees that would ever happen, but it's good to know there's an option of players being of that age getting up to that kind of price. And just to finish off, a little disclaimer, this is definitely not any kind of financial advice. I'm just a player who likes the game and wanted to share some of the analysis and picks that I've found. Do your own research, don't just listen to what I've got to say. One of the good things that you can do is to try and watch some highlights of the player and see if you like the way they play. If you can capture in any of their games, then that's also a good way of researching. So that's all I've got for you today. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you got any value from or entertainment from watching this, then please like and subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with more of these videos. If you have any comments, please put them down below. Let me know what you think of Sebastian Rudy as an investment. Is there any players you think could be a better option in the 21, 22p range? And if there's any other players that you think would be worth me reviewing, then also put that in the comments below.